All right, let's dive right into one of the most intense moments in all of literature, straight from John Milton's Paradise Lost. So, the forbidden fruit has been eaten. Humanity's first sin is officially on the books. And in that sudden, shocking silence that follows, it feels like the entire universe is just holding its breath. So, what happens next? I mean, really, where do you go from there? This is so much more than a story about a garden and an apple. It's about divine judgment, massive cosmic consequences, and honestly, one of the most brilliant, ironic punishments you will ever come across. Let's get into it.
Okay, first up, heaven knows. You see, the first consequence, the first ripple in the pond, it doesn't even happen on Earth. It happens instantly, light years away, in heaven itself.
Yeah, there's really no hiding from an all-seeing God. The second the act is done, it's known. The guardian angels, the ones who are supposed to be protecting paradise, they come back to heaven just heartbroken. But God, knowing everything, basically tells them, it's not your fault. He makes it really clear that this was allowed to happen, that it was all part of a much bigger, unfolding plan.
So now that everyone in heaven is up to speed, a mission is declared. God sends his son to earth, but, and this is key, he's not coming as a savior just yet. He's coming as a judge. Things are about to get very, very real down in the garden.
That brings us to our second section, the first judgment. The camera pans back to paradise, but the vibe has totally changed. It's not a paradise anymore. The air is just thick with shame and fear, and you've got Adam and Eve literally hiding from their creator.
The son arrives, and his question just cuts right through the silence. It's the central question in this sort of celestial courtroom drama. And what happens? Adam, totally ashamed, points the finger at Eve. Eve, of course, blames the serpent. The blame game begins, but judgment is coming no matter what.
And then the sentences are handed down, and boy, are they foundational. First, the serpent, or at least the animal Satan was possessing, is cursed to crawl on its belly forever. Next up is Eve. Her sentence is to experience pain in childbirth and to be ruled by her husband. And finally, Adam. For him, the very ground is cursed. He'll have to work and sweat for his food until the day he dies and returns to the dust he came from. I mean, these three sentences are going to echo through all of human history.
But here's the thing. While this very personal drama is playing out on Earth, something way bigger and way more sinister is happening on a cosmic level. A new power is about to be unleashed. You have to understand, in Milton's universe, sin and death aren't just ideas. They are literal, terrifying, monstrous beings. They're actually Satan's children, and they've just been waiting at the gates of hell. The second they sense that their father has succeeded, they get to work. And their advance is just relentless. They immediately start building this enormous bridge. Think of it like a permanent highway, stretching from the mouth of hell, right across the chaos of space, leading directly to our fragile new world. As you can see here, their arrival isn't a matter of if, but when.
Once they get to Earth, they have a two-pronged attack plan. Sin's job is to infect the minds of humanity, to corrupt our thoughts and actions from the inside out. Meanwhile, death gets to work on the physical world, bringing decay and mortality to every living thing for the very first time. The world is now permanently infected.
And this brings us to the incredible climax of this whole sequence. Satan, having met up with his kids, sin and death, now heads back to his own kingdom in hell to announce his amazing, glorious victory. So there he is. He's standing in front of his legions of fallen angels in Pandemonium, which is the huge capital city they built in hell. He gives this epic speech, telling them all about his journey, how he cleverly tempted Eve, and how humanity is now fallen. He did exactly what he promised he would do. He is expecting a hero's welcome.
He finishes his speech, pauses, and waits for the thunderous applause. But it doesn't come. Instead, this weird sound starts to build. A dry, scraping sound, a hiss, and then another one, and another. From every single corner of this massive hall, he's not hearing praise, he's hearing scornful hissing.
Because in that exact moment, and this chart makes it perfectly clear, every single one of his followers is being transformed. Their cheers are literally choked off as their bodies twist and contort into serpents, just like their leader. And this is just the most perfect poetic justice. Satan himself, the great rebel leader, the powerful orator, is forcibly turned into a slithering, speechless snake. The punishment could not fit the crime any better.
He used a serpent to cause the fall, and now he and all his followers are nothing but serpents.
Oh, but the torture does not end there. A grove of beautiful, tempting-looking trees suddenly pops up in hell, looking just like the tree of knowledge. Driven by this insane hunger and thirst, all the new serpents slither up the trees and bite into the fruit, only for it to turn into bitter, choking ash in their mouths. And they are doomed to repeat this cycle of hope and disappointment forever. Which really leaves us with this one final question to chew on. Satan did what he set out to do. He corrupted humanity. He unleashed sin and death. By his own standards, he won. But in doing so, he basically engineered his own most humiliating and eternal punishment. So you have to ask yourself, what kind of victory is that?
So most of us kind of know the story of Adam and Eve's fall, right? But in John Milton's epic poem, Paradise Lost, that moment is just the climax. The real human drama, the really gripping part of the story, kicks off the morning after. And that's what we're going to dig into, the profound emotional fallout from Book 10, where the first couple has to actually face what they've done. Because you see, eating the fruit wasn't the end of the story, not even close. The true human drama, the conflict that would set the stage for, well, everything to come, starts right here, in the moments after their perfect world completely shatters. And believe me, it absolutely shatters. Just take a look here. On the left, that's the world they knew. Perfect harmony, a temperate climate, total peace. But their new reality, on the right, it's a whole different story. Sin and death, who were once confined to hell, now basically have a bridge straight to earth, and they bring discord along with them. The very nature of existence is broken. And these consequences aren't just spiritual, they are brutally physical. God commands his angels to literally unmake the world. They actually tilt the Earth's axis, creating harsh seasons of extreme heat and cold for the first time. And down on the ground, animals that once lived in peace now turn on each other and on humanity. The world itself has become a place of conflict. So as the world outside them is descending into chaos, an even bigger storm starts to rage within. And we see this first in Adam as he really begins to understand the true scale of their catastrophe. At first, Adam is just crushed. It's this profound, almost noble sorrow. He gets that this isn't just about him and Eve. He has doomed every single person who will ever live. The weight of that guilt is so immense that he wishes he could just take on all the punishment himself to spare the future. It's a real moment of empathy. But it doesn't last. Yeah, that sorrow sours really, really fast. It curdles into this bitter, resentful anger. He lashes out, turning on the one person left who shares his fate. He blames Eve for everything, insulting not just her, but womanhood itself. It's a complete collapse. He's just retreating into blame as a defense against his own guilt. So just put yourself in Eve's shoes for a second. Your world is destroyed, your future is terrifying, and the person you are bound to for eternity now sees you as the sole cause of all this misery. What do you do? I mean, what's your next move? Because her choice here is one of the most crucial moments in the entire poem.
So Eve is faced with a choice. She can fight back, defend herself, and just escalate this whole blame game, or she can do something completely unexpected. And her decision is either going to cement their division forever, or it's going to begin the long, painful path toward healing.
Instead of defending herself, Eve does the unthinkable. She actually falls at Adam's feet. She doesn't make excuses, she doesn't point out his own role in what happened. Instead, she argues that the only thing that can possibly save them now is each other. Unity and love, she pleads, are their only weapons in this new, broken world. And this right here is the crucial point. While she notes that she was tricked by the serpent, she immediately takes full responsibility for her actions. She owns her sin against God, and, just as importantly, against Adam. It's this act of radical humility that just completely disarms his anger. Her plea just shatters Adam's defensive rage. You know, in the face of her total surrender and her plea for love, his perspective is forced to change. He can no longer see her as an enemy, but as his suffering partner. Eve's words are the turning point. Adam is calmed, he helps her up, he consoles her, and then he finally does what he couldn't do before. He admits his own guilt. He accepts his share of the responsibility. They stop blaming each other and decide they have to face what's coming together. So what gives them the strength to move forward? Well, they find it in the memory of a prophecy. They recall God's promise that Eve's descendants would one day bruise the serpent's head. This one detail becomes their lifeline. It's not a guarantee of their own salvation, but it's a glimmer of hope that humanity's story isn't over, that redemption is still possible.
And with that little bit of hope, they form a plan. This isn't just an emotional reconciliation, it's a practical strategy for survival. First, end the blame game. Second, accept their new reality. Third, hold on to that prophecy of hope. And finally, the most important step, go together and seek God's forgiveness.
This shared plan leads them to their very first act as a redeemed, unified couple. It's a quiet moment, but it's an incredibly powerful one that marks the true resolution of their personal fall from grace. They go back to the very place where the Son of God pronounced their sentence. And there, together, they fall to their knees. In unison, they confess what they did, without excuses, and they pray for mercy. It is the very first act of human repentance. You know, from a literary perspective, this moment is everything. It's the true resolution to the climax in the previous book. The temptation is over. Satan's role in this central narrative is basically finished. From here on out, the story of Paradise Lost shifts its focus entirely to the human journey, a story of regret, repentance, and the long road toward redemption. So Milton leaves us with this really powerful thought to chew on. In the face of total ruin, stripped of everything, Adam and Eve discovered that the only way forward was together. Their first act in a fallen world wasn't despair, it was unity and hope. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What does their choice say about the power of ours? All right, let's dive right into Book 11 of Milton's Paradise Lost. We're going to explore what happens right after the fall. And let me tell you, this isn't just some simple story about punishment. Oh no, it's a really deep look at judgment, at mercy, and at the truly heartbreaking loss of home. So Adam and Eve have done it. They've eaten the forbidden fruit. And the question just hanging in the air is, what happens now? What's next? Well, as Milton is about to show us, the answer is way more complicated than you might think. You know, what's so fascinating is where Milton decides to start this next chapter. You'd think we'd start on Earth, right? With Adam and Eve hiding in shame. But nope, we're immediately taken up to heaven, where a divine judgment is happening. And surprisingly, it's one that's actually tempered with mercy. And this really gets to the heart of the conflict. So up in heaven, God hears the prayers of Adam and Eve. And Milton makes a point to tell us these prayers were inspired by God's own grace to begin with. The result is complicated. They are granted mercy, but there's a huge catch. They can't live in paradise anymore. Their new impurity just can't exist in the perfection of Eden. And a key player in this whole decision is, of course, the Son. He steps forward, just like he'll do later in the New Testament, and he pleads humanity's case. He asks God for mercy, and once again, he volunteers himself as the one who will eventually pay the price to balance the scales of justice. And this quote just brilliantly sums up his entire argument. The Son promises to temper justice with mercy. It's not about letting them off the hook, not at all. It's about finding a way to satisfy the demands of divine law while also, showing compassion. It's a delicate balance. Okay, so the judgment is set. Now God needs someone to carry it out on earth. And the angel he picks for this job isn't just any angel. It is the mighty Archangel Michael. And his instructions are super specific, which really shows you just how complex this mission of both banishment and mercy truly is. So Michael basically gets a 4-part to-do list. First, he has to break the news about their banishment. But, and this is important, he has to do it firmly yet kindly. This isn't about being cruel. Third, and this is absolutely crucial, he has to show Adam a vision of the future to keep him from falling into total despair. And finally, he needs to secure the gates of Eden. So yeah, this is a lot more than just a simple eviction notice. Now, the choice of who God sends is a huge deal. Think about it. Before the fall, God sent Raphael, a gentle teacher who came down like a friendly guest for dinner. Now, he sends Michael, described as a fearsome potentate decked out in full heavenly armor. This shift says everything about the new, much more formal and distant relationship between humanity and heaven. So as Michael descends from the heavens, our focus shifts back down to earth, and we get to see the raw, emotional fallout of this divine judgment on Adam and Eve. Michael arrives, and wow, he does not beat around the bush. His message is direct and absolutely devastating. There's no room for negotiation, no appeal. The command is absolute. You must leave. Eve overhears this, and her reaction is just immediate and heartbreaking. She cries out that being banished from her home, it feels like a blow that's worse than of death. I mean, it's the only world she's ever known, and it's being ripped away from her. But Adam's grief, well, it cuts even deeper. For him, the tragedy isn't just about losing the beautiful garden and the streams. It's about losing the specific places, the sacred spots where he used to physically walk and talk with God. It's the loss of that incredible personal connection. And Adam's sorrow leads Michael to deliver one of the most important theological lessons in the entire poem. It's an idea that was deeply personal to Milton himself, the concept of worship beyond any one specific place. Michael essentially corrects Adam, explaining a crucial point. God is everywhere. You don't need a specific location to worship, because true worship is an internal, personal thing. And right here, you can really see Milton's own Puritan beliefs shining through. This is a critique of focusing on fancy churches, arguing instead for a faith that lives inside you, no matter where you are. But Michael's mission isn't over yet. He still has to fulfill that third part of his orders, to lessen Adam's despair. And to do that, he now has to show him what's coming next for humanity. So here's what he does. He puts Eve into a gentle, sort of enchanted sleep. Then he leads Adam, all alone, up to the highest hill in all of paradise, a vantage point where he can see the entire world spread out before him. And this location is just packed with meaning. Milton creates this powerful parallel, actually comparing this hill to the one where Satan will later tempt Jesus. But the purpose here is completely flipped. Where Satan's goal is to corrupt, Michael's goal here is to test Adam's hope and ultimately to give him a reason to keep going. And this leaves us with a really profound question. Michael is about to show Adam a future that is just filled with violence and suffering, all the direct consequences of the fall. God's intention here is to give Adam comfort, but is it really possible for seeing all that tragedy to bring any hope at all? It's a paradox that really sits at the heart of the vision we're about to see unfold. Okay, so picture this. You've just lost everything. You've been kicked out of paradise. And then an archangel shows up to give you a sneak peek of the future that you just unleashed on all of humanity. That is exactly where we find Adam in Book 11 of Milton's Paradise Lost. And we're about to jump into his incredible and, honestly, pretty terrifying vision of the world to come, a world of sin, death, and maybe, just maybe, the first glimmer of hope. So we're going to follow Adam on this wild ride through 4 key visions. First up, his gut-wrenching first look at death. Then we'll see humanity's nosedive into corruption. After that, a surprising hero pops up, and we'll end with a massive, world-ending disaster that, believe it or not, actually holds a promise for the future. All right, so the Archangel Michael does not ease Adam into this. There's no gentle introduction. The very first thing Adam sees is something he can't even really wrap his head around, the end of life. And it all kicks off with a shocking act of violence, right inside his own future family. I mean, you really have to let this quote sink in. Adam's reaction is just, wow. It's not just sadness, it's a total breakdown of everything he's ever known. He's only ever known eternal life, right? So the idea of suffering is so foreign, so awful, that he literally can't figure out why anyone would choose to live through it. This is the real price of the fall, right here. And this is the vision that causes it. Adam watches his own future sons, Cain and Abel. They both give offerings to God, but only Abel's is accepted. And in this flash of jealousy, something brand new to the world, Cain kills his brother with a stone. Just think about that for a second. The first martyr. And Adam has to watch his own son commit it. It's his legacy, and it's brutal. Michael then kind of zooms out the camera to show Adam that, hey, this murder, it's not a one-off thing. It's just the beginning. Death, he explains, is going to have a lot of different faces from now on. Things like disease, floods, earthquakes, war, and even just the slow, quiet process of getting old. This is Milton showing us, and Adam, that the fall wasn't just a single mistake. It created a whole new, permanent state of being for humanity. So Adam he's reeling, and he asks Michael the question we'd all be asking. Is that it? Is there any way out of this? Is this grim, painful fate the only thing we have to look forward to? And Michael's answer here is so important. He doesn't give him a magic spell to escape death. Nope. What he offers is advice. He basically says, look, living a good, virtuous life won't make you immortal, but it might help you avoid a violent or painful death. You might get to live a long life and die peacefully. It's not paradise, not by a long shot, but it's the first sign that humans still have some control, some way to make choices in this new, fallen world. Okay, so the vision gets bigger now. Michael shows Adam how that one little seed of sin, Cain's jealousy, just grows and spreads like a virus until it's corrupting entire societies, and it happens in two very different, but as we'll see, equally bad ways. So on one hand, Adam sees a civilization that's all about pleasure, partying, feasting, sex. They're so busy having a good time, they completely forget about God. And funnily enough, Adam actually thinks this looks great at first, until Michael sets him straight. Then, on the other hand, he sees a society obsessed with violence, huge armies, conquering lands, all for the sake of fame. Michael calls this a multiplication of Cain's original murder, which is such a powerful idea. For Milton, it doesn't matter if you're a party animal or warlord. Both paths lead you away from what's truly important. Just when Adam is about to lose all hope again, the vision changes. Right in the middle of all this darkness and corruption, Michael points out a recurring theme. A single person who stands up and says, no, this is wrong. And you guys, this is a huge key to understanding Milton's view of, well, everything. He's basically saying history isn't really about empires or technology. It's about a moral pattern that repeats over and over. In every messed up generation, one good person steps up to speak the truth, and every single time the world hates them for it. But God always sees them. The first example he sees is this guy, Enoch. He's railing against all the violence and war, and just as a mob is about to get him, a cloud comes down and just, poof, snatches him up and takes him straight to heaven. Can you imagine what that's like for Adam to see? This guy gets to completely bypass death, the very thing Adam is terrified of, all because he was virtuous. So you start to see the formula here, right? It's a 4-step cycle. 1, society gets super corrupt. 2, one person speaks out against it. 3, everybody else tells that person to shut up, or worse. And 4, God steps in to save his guy. Keep that pattern in mind because it's about to happen again. And bam, here we go again. But this time, the stakes are so much higher. The whole world Adam sees is now completely lost in those sins of pleasure we talked about. And right in the middle of it all is Noah, one guy preaching against it, and nobody's listening. He is the next one righteous man. But his job isn't just to save himself. It's to save, well, everyone and everything that's left. This all sets the stage for the most epic vision yet. Adam is about to see the absolute worst consequence of human sin, but also, and this is the crazy part, the very first great promise of redemption. Adam has to watch this whole thing unfold in horror. He sees Noah build this massive ark. He sees the animals march in 2 by 2, and then the rain starts. And it doesn't stop. The entire world is washed away. Adam is just devastated, watching all of his future children and grandchildren get wiped out. But just as he hits rock bottom, the waters pull back, the ark lands, and something incredible appears in the sky. A rainbow. Michael explains this isn't just some weather effect, it's a covenant. It is a binding promise from God to all of humanity that he will never, ever do this again. He'll never hit the reset button with a flood. And in that one moment, Adam's grief just melts away into joy. He gets it. Even after total destruction, God still has a plan. It's not over. So this whole journey for Adam takes him from the absolute despair of seeing the first murder, all the way through the horror of a global apocalypse, but it lands him on the hope of a divine promise. It really leaves us with a big question, doesn't it? What is Milton saying about justice? Is it just about punishing people for doing bad things? Or is it something more? This terrifying but ultimately hopeful cycle of destruction and renewal, a way of clearing the board to make room for a second chance. Today, we're dropping in on what might be the most epic history lesson of all time. We're talking about a vision of humanity's entire future delivered by none other than an archangel to the very first man, Adam, straight from John Milton's Paradise Lost. Seriously, think about that for a second. What if you could see it all? Every single triumph, every heartbreaking disaster, every war, every moment of grace, from the very beginning of time right up to the end. It's a lot to take in.
Well, for Adam, this isn't some hypothetical. He's just been shown a series of visions that have literally exhausted his mortal eyes. So now, the Archangel Michael is going to give him the rest of the story, verbally. And hey, we get to listen in. So Michael picks up the story right after the Great Flood. The whole world has been wiped clean. Noah and his family are what Milton calls a second stock. Basically, a fresh start for the human race. But you have to wonder, is it really a fresh start? And here's the kicker. God might have washed the world clean with water, but that flood couldn't wash the sin out of human nature itself. Nope, that original corruption from the fall, it's still there, baked right in, setting the stage for history to just repeat itself. And sure enough, it doesn't take long. Just a few generations later, a totally new flavor of sin pops up, and it's driven by a new kind of leader. His name is Nimrod, and his ambition is absolutely off the charts. You probably know this story as the Tower of Babel. See, Nimrod isn't just a bad dude. He's a tyrant. He forces people to build this massive tower to the heavens, not just for fame, but as a direct challenge to God. It's this monstrous act of pride, a direct echo of Satan's own rebellion. But God's reaction is fascinating. It's not fire and brimstone, it's confusion. He just scrambles everyone's languages, the whole project falls apart, and as Milton writes, heaven laughs. Now, Adam is just horrified hearing this story, one man ruling over others with brute force. And his reaction brings us to one of the absolute core themes of Paradise Lost. What does it actually mean to be free? Adam's argument is that this was never part of God's plan. He says God gave humans dominion over animals, over the earth, but not over each other. People were meant to be free from the rule of other people. But Michael's response comes with this profound twist. He explains that, yeah, that's true, but real freedom is an internal thing. It comes from governing yourself with what he calls right reason and being obedient to God. But when people choose instead to be ruled by their own sinful passions, they essentially become slaves on the inside. So God allows them to be enslaved on the outside by tyrants. External bondage is just a reflection of internal slavery. Okay, so with humanity getting more and more sinful, falling under the thumb of tyrants, God switches up his strategy. This is a big pivot. Instead of trying to deal with all of humanity at once, he decides to focus all of his efforts on one single righteous man. And that man is Abraham. God makes a special promise, a covenant with him. He says that from Abraham's family, a great nation will rise. And out of that nation, one day the great deliverer, the Messiah, will finally come to bruise the serpent's head. And this promise kicks off an incredible, epic journey. Abraham's descendants, the Israelites, they eventually find themselves enslaved in Egypt under another tyrant, the Pharaoh. So what does God do? He raises up a new leader, Moses, to lead the Exodus, a divinely backed rebellion to free his chosen people. And it's during this escape, on Mount Sinai, that Moses receives the law directly from God. Okay, so the Israelites are now free from slavery, and they have God's perfect law to guide them. Problem solved, right? Well, not quite, because now they are staring down a brand new and maybe even deeper problem. And Adam, listening to all this, just hits the nail on the head. He knows human nature by now. He asks Michael, how on earth are these flawed, sinful people ever supposed to live up to this perfect, divine standard? It seems impossible. And Michael's answer is just a theological bombshell. He says, they can't, and they won't. The law was never actually meant to be the solution. Its real purpose was to act like a mirror, to show humanity just how sinful it really truly is and how desperately it needs a real, final sacrifice for all its failures. This whole idea is called typology. It's the concept that everything in the Old Testament is basically a shadow that points forward to a future substance. So all those animal sacrifices, they're just a shadow of the Son's ultimate sacrifice. And get this, Joshua, whose name in Hebrew is the exact same as Jesus, leads his people to the earthly promised land. It's a shadow of how Jesus will one day lead humanity to the true heavenly promised land. It's all connected. This one line from Michael really sums up the whole thing perfectly. The law is basically a diagnostic tool.
It's like an X-ray. It can show you the disease of sin in perfect detail, but it has absolutely no power to cure it. And that leaves Adam and us with the final massive question. If a total reset after the flood wasn't enough, and even a perfect divine law wasn't enough, what in the world could possibly be powerful enough to finally break this cycle of sin and save humanity? Well, the answer to that is the climax of Milton's entire epic. All right, let's dive right into the final moments of John Milton's epic Paradise Lost. We're picking up with Adam at his absolute lowest point. He's just been kicked out of the Garden of Eden, and everything seems lost. But this moment of total despair is exactly where the poem's final and honestly most profound vision begins. I mean, for Adam, this is it. It's over. Just try to imagine the weight of that. He hasn't just lost a home. He's lost innocence itself. He's lost that direct one-on-one relationship with his creator. The feeling of finality is just crushing, as the gates of Eden literally close behind him for good. And this is the question that just hangs over these final pages. After a failure this big, this catastrophic, can any good possibly come from it? You'd think the answer is a simple no, but Milton gives us something so much deeper, and frankly, a little mind-bending. So, to answer that question, God sends the archangel Michael. And Michael's not just there to be a bouncer and throw Adam out. No, he's there to be a teacher. He takes Adam up to the highest hill in paradise to show him a vision of what's to come, the entire sweep of human history that will spring from this one single act of disobedience. And wow, what a vision it is. Michael basically gives him the highlight reel of human history. He shows Adam these incredible highs, like a magnificent temple built for God, but also these devastating lows, like seeing that very same temple get destroyed. But then, out of that destruction comes the ultimate promise, a savior, the Messiah, born of a virgin. This is the one who was always meant to finally crush the serpent, Satan, and it all leads to a final judgment day where heaven and earth become one. Now, when Adam hears about a Messiah who's going to take down Satan, his mind immediately jumps to one thing: a fight, a huge war. I mean, he's seen angelic battles before, right? So he's ecstatic, picturing this glorious, unstoppable warrior who's finally going to crush his enemy in some spectacular, epic showdown. But here's the twist. This is the moment the entire epic just pivots on its axis. Michael has to correct him. He explains that this battle won't be fought with swords and thunder. Adam's expecting a glorious war, but Michael reveals a humbly sacrifice. Victory, he says, isn't going to come through fighting, but through suffering. Not through overwhelming power, but through overwhelming love. And this is how it's actually going to go down. First up, the incarnation. The Son of God himself becomes human. Then, the sacrifice. He chooses to die on a cross, taking the hit for Adam's sin. 3 days later, bam, the resurrection. He rises from the dead, beating death itself. And finally, the ascension. He goes back to heaven, his victory totally complete, a victory won not by force, but by humility. This whole revelation brings Adam and us, the readers, to one of the most powerful and, let's be honest, paradoxical ideas in all of literature: the concept of the fortunate fall. The idea that Adam's sin, this awful, world-breaking event, could somehow impossibly lead to an even greater good. The technical term for this is felix culpa, which is just Latin for happy fault or fortunate fall. And the thinking goes like this. Yeah, the fall was absolutely a bad thing, but it created an opportunity for God to show the full-on, no-holds-barred depth of his grace and mercy. You know, without sin, there's no need for forgiveness. Without death, there can be no resurrection. And you can almost feel Adam's mind just being blown as he gets it, when he says that all this good of evil shall produce, an evil turned to good. He's realizing that God's plan is so big, so incredible, that it can take his absolute worst mistake and use it to create something even more glorious. It's a jaw-dropping moment for him. And just think about the final score here. This is the bottom line. God's mercy gets put on full display. Humanity isn't just put back where it was, it's elevated to heaven. And this new paradise, where heaven and earth are joined, is actually even better, even more amazing than the one Adam lost in the first place. So, after witnessing all of human history, the darkness, the light, the redemption, Adam is finally ready for the ultimate lesson, the real answer to his despair. And this Right here is the heart of the whole poem. The physical garden? It's gone. He can never, ever go back. But Michael teaches him that a new kind of paradise, a much more durable one, is now possible. A paradise you build inside yourself, based on faith and obedience. Michael calls this the sum of wisdom. It's not about knowing everything or having immense power. It's so much simpler. It's about living a life of humble obedience, being content with what you know, and just cultivating goodness inside you. And the parallel here is so powerful. Satan is trapped, carrying hell within him wherever he goes. But Adam has now learned how to carry paradise within himself. And with that final lesson finally learned, the time has come. Michael leads Adam down from the hill to wake up Eve, who's had her own set of comforting visions. The epic is winding down to its quiet, really poignant end. The final image is just iconic. You have a cherubim with a flaming sword guarding the gate. Michael leads Adam and Eve out, and yeah, they shed a few tears for the home they've lost. Who wouldn't? But then they turn. Hand in hand, together, they face this huge, unknown world in front of them, ready to begin human history. So Milton leaves us with this incredible idea, one that echoes from Adam's story right into our own. The idea that even from our biggest failures, our most devastating losses, a surprising and maybe even greater good can emerge. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? In your own life, what paradise might be waiting on the other side of a fall?